Good evening and salutations. Welcome to episode 19 of the Autist Circle. We are talking about John Blanche. I am your host, the captive bleach demon here, and joined by always the man with the method, Total Blackout Painting, also known as Fat Dave.
Hello. Yeah, you're not showing up in my reactive here.
Oh my.
Or try logging back into that or refreshing it or something. Um, but yeah, today we're talking about this is the final artist for season 2. We're talking about John Blanche, the of course the famous Warhammer artist. I felt like this originally I'd planned to do Rockwell here.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we only covered him for the Christmas stuff, but I felt like uh John Blanche, because of his recent passing, would be a fitting artist for us to review here, because because of his amazing work, and two, his contribution to pop culture in a lot of ways. His contribution to modern culture in the form of his art and Warhammer also, which, I love Warhammer. I love the universe, and as I was saying to Bleach beforehand, I'm a little bit of a tourist myself because I do not I haven't read the books. Like, I have a few codexes, I have a few armies. My experience to Warhammer was through the game, not through the myth, and then I worked backwards from there. I got to play the game, and then I started learning more of the mythology after that, and then discovered a few things that have really, piqued my interest in the subject. And so I thought, yeah, we'll talk about John Blanche. We'll talk about his influence on culture today, his influence on Warhammer, um, because it was really foundational, and I mean that literally. So I guess we'll jump over to our timeline here, which doesn't have, it honestly, it doesn't have a lot of John Blanche. And see, we've got so so John Blanche he's not a classical artist in the same sense as Venosa or Geiger or Wood. But his impact on modern culture is really no less relevant. And he's responsible for some of the most iconic Warhammer images of all time. And his works have really helped to build the grimdark universe of Warhammer and Warhammer 40K, which is one of the most popular, and I think detailed and interesting um, universes of all time. And with a canon of hundreds of books, stories, dozens of movies, games, fan made film projects, the grimdark universe of Warhammer is not just an ever increasing part of popular culture. It's kind of become a cultural touchstone to many people in the modern world. Blanche's visionary work brings us into that world, and helps give vision to some of the most foundational characters of the universe. And while Blanche's work did not fully, or did he did help to create the Warhammer aesthetic, um, he didn't fully create the world like Geiger's biomechanical nightmares or Venosa's bright and angelic beings. And he draws influences from them and others to help flesh out the grimdark world of the 41st millennium. And Blanche he's better compared to people like Frazetta, because although they were more commercially involved as opposed to being immersed in the modern world of fine art. And similarly to Frazetta, he deserves no less respect for it. His work has been seen and loved by millions, and some of his paintings are so iconic that to many they embody the spirit of the Warhammer universe.
And I'll have to admit, I'm even less than just a pedestrian. Never got into 40K, but I do find the art fascinating.
Hmm. The motif and the notion, I think it's especially relevant today, the notion of in the grim dark world of the 41st millennia, there is only war. Like that shit goes pretty hard.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. And I was gonna try to find a clip of it to put in the front of the stream here, but it just didn't just I just couldn't find a good one that was just that. It wasn't too long and that I didn't feel like would get, copyright struck or something like that. So
Yeah, that's
um
something we were talking about at the start with contemporary artists, especially ones of this caliber where interviews are out there. It's very easy for us to get a whack.
yeah. Yeah, you gotta and as I was saying to Bleach before this too, um doing more contemporary artists is a lot more difficult than doing classical artists. And that's because there's not a lot of scholarly references. And so yeah, I end up reading a lot of interviews and stuff like that. And he's a fascinating guy and he's really done, he did a lot for the fantasy art scene, which we'll come to find out through the course of the presentation here. So, John Blanche was born on October 26th in 1948 in post World War Britain to a working class family. In the atmosphere of desolation caused by bombings and rebuildings, he first experienced what would later translate into the grimdark fantasy he would help to create. His escape at a young age came through toys, movies, historical stories of heroes and battles and triumph. And his life is a story of a young artist rising from the ashes of a country, rebuilding after a great war. And being told that fantasy and science fiction drawing were mad and fantastical things. Oh, and drawing mad, fantastical things were not practical. And then building a career doing exactly those same things. Yeah, James Workshop he's a real bitch about the copyright strike stuff. So, um, he said that he never saw himself as anything other than an artist, and he's quoted as saying that he knew he wanted to be an artist, quote, right from the age of about 3.
Damn.
And he remembered being 15 when a careers officer expected boys like him to queue up for the factory work rather than the art college, but he ended up studying at Nottingham Art College. Um, this lovely building here. And then he later studied graphics at Loughborough University. This stunning building here. And while at the university, he held onto the romantic, war-haunted imagination that his teachers and advisors often tried to discourage. Of course, if you know anybody, like I knew a bunch of kids in high school that drew like heavy metal skulls and shit like that.
Oh yeah.
And the teachers didn't like it, and the art teacher wouldn't accept a lot of that stuff because she just didn't appreciate it, right?
Hmm.
But but the reality of it, like, and one of those dudes who did a lot of that like kind of heavy metal art is a very successful tattoo artist now. um and he does amazing work, and his aesthetic, which was inspired a lot by the kind of grim dark and heavy metal universe of Warhammer 40K. Although he may not have known it directly at the time. Um, he was very much in the same vein as a lot of it. So,
It's interesting. As far as art styles and subjects, a guy I went to high school with, um, who I think now works for a couple game studios, like and
mhm.
whatnot. That was his initial art style.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was very much copying, a lot of that, very heavy metal aesthetic.
Yeah. And that kind of abstract, like heavy metal magazine. Like I grew up reading with heavy metal magazine. My older brother had heavy metal magazines all the time. Um, it always had a lot of art and like sci-fi stuff like this. But then also, um, yeah, he escaped the art longhouse. You're right, LGM. So we'll talk more about that as the presentation goes on. So this is an image that is from uh, the novel or the art book Flights of Icarus, which I'll talk about here in a second.
Hmm.
But let me get going here. So, but by the time Blanche was in his 20s, he began working as a freelance illustrator. Um, in the early 70s was when fantasy publishing in Britain and the US began to take off. Companies like TSR, here's the OG TSR logo, originally published Dungeons and Dragons, which was founded in 1973, and it started to popularize fantasy gaming.
Hmm.
Magazines like White Dwarf, and this is an article of White Dwarf. Another article, my older brother used to have White Dwarf magazines laying around too. It grew out of fantasy, and this grew out of a fantasy wargaming newsletter called uh, Owl and Weasel.
Oh wow. There's a
Yeah,
wow.
it's a fucking cool throwback, and it's really to me like um, it's so nostalgic to me for the early days of a lot of this gaming. And it shows how much passion the people who created these games had before they made a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, when it
and to
was a
me, it shows
passion
why they
project.
made so much money. Exactly. It was pure passion. And this news article was published by legendary game designer Steve Jackson.
Oh shit.
This gentleman here he's created so many different games. Munchkin, which I'm sure most people you've probably played a game of Munchkin at some point.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
the card game, like it's a really popular party game. He created Munchkin. He's created so many different games. And then author Ian Livingston, this handsome gentleman here, those two um, were the ones who created that magazine, and it was growing in popularity in both the European and European and U.S. markets. And one of the earliest illustrations was for the book Flights of Icarus. Like I said, the for opening image for this. Here's the cover for it. This art is not actually by um, this is actually by Roger Dean.
Hmm.
This image here, but this book here has a lot of Blanche's work in it. And this book was published in 1977, and it was written by a guy named Donald Lemcool, which I couldn't find a picture of. And it was edited by the iconic artist Roger Dean, like I said. Um, and this is another one of his works. He did a lot of fantasy work, and his brother, author Martin Dean.
Hmm.
And this is Martin Dean's book that is has the cover done by Roger Dean. And the book featured art from a number of artists. The Dean brothers were well-established members of the British fantasy scene before um, Blanche came along. And Roger's illustrations appeared on multiple album covers and books. This is the album Fragile by Yes. Yes was a really big band at the time. I mean, there's one of the ones that people still know about today. He did a bunch of art covers for them, very similarly to Geiger and Venosa. You know, artists or musical artists back in the day used to search for interesting and unique artists to make a cover for them because, you know, an album cover could sell an album for you. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
it could get somebody to listen to your album if your album cover was cool or interesting enough. And also, it made that album infinitely more collectible. So, um, Blanche's style was not standard fantasy, and he made it feel older and more dangerous. He entered in the professional scene at the time, it was becoming a lot more commercial. And his works were not just heroic escapism, his works were really gothic and grimy, kind of as we can see in this. Go back to the original image for the slide here. It's not a clean aesthetic so much.
Mm-hmm.
There's clean lines, but it does look like a very lived in, rough, brutal world. Um, and then his works also had a lot of violence to them, which was not always really common. And they were more reminiscent of old world European, like battlefield pageantry and the emerging punk aesthetic of decay and a capturing of that. So go to the next one here. Let me find where I was. Okay. So this is the Warhammer logo throughout the years. Um,
The one I'm most
which you,
familiar with is actually the second one from 93 to 98.
oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's I actually like the one from 2020 the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um the current one, if you really look at it, the R is outside of the we'll zoom in on it.
Oh, what the?
So
No. Oh, fucking A.
the R is outside of the lines of the inner thing, and the A is somewhat off center too.
Oh, both A's are too. Oh, that's gonna fuck with me now.
I know.
It's because the
It's
one
like I can't.
on the far left is like just slightly out of horizontal alignment too.
It's like, man, all they had to do was move it over like 3 points to have
Yeah.
everything centered up perfectly. And they didn't. And I kind of like to think that's on purpose as a little bit of a fuck you to the nerds.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
Not the
actually, in
nerds, but the autists. Like they're trying to.
oh, that actually, it's the same thing. If you go to the 98 to the 2020, the R is still doing something really just funky, and the A's off
Just
center too.
a little off, yeah.
Oh, I can't
So it's
unsee
totally
it.
on purpose. But yeah, so we'll switch over to the Games Workshop logo, which is, I think, a pretty familiar one to most people here. People here, I don't know about Formolzino in your chat, but I know that LGM and Callum are very familiar with it. Anyhow, the company was founded in 1975 by John Peake and his school friends that I did previously mention, who were Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And the company first manufactured wooden boards for games like Backgammon and Go and Mancala, but eventually became an official distributor for TSR games, including Dungeons and Dragons.
Hmm.
This is the first edition handbook for Dungeons and Dragons. And Peak would eventually leave the company after they expressed interests in more modern gaming, including computer gaming. And in 1978, Games Workshop provided funding for the co-founding of Citadel Miniatures with game designer Brian Ansell, who would eventually become the CEO of Games Workshop.
Hmm.
And Citadel would later merge with Games Workshop in the 80s. And Games Workshop primary focus was originally on distribution of American RPGs, which eventually started to become pretty costly to them. But in the late 70s, they began to create their own IPs, which eventually would become Warhammer. And Blanche's first association with Games Workshop and Citadel started in 1977, where he worked as a freelance illustrator. But the relationship grew quickly into something much larger as they began to move from importing books and games and stuff to creating their own universe. And Blanche's work became one of the keys to the visual creation and transformation of the company. His dark vision set the groundwork for Warhammer, and not as a clean, stark fantasy world. And not to say, oh, nice, not to say that D&D is necessarily clean, but it's not, it's not necessarily as violent either. So the fantasy world that he created was a brutal medieval gothic universe of skulls, saints, machines, mutants, and most importantly of war and war gaming. And by the time 40K arrived in 1987, Blanche's imagination was ready for the image that would define the Imperium at its rotten spiritual center, which was the Emperor sits on his golden throne, which is going to be the first picture we talk about today. So this was created in 1987, like I said, and it's easily one of the most iconic Warhammer images, and probably, honestly, the most popular painting that Blanche ever did in regards to 40K. And in my opinion, it's one of the ones that captures the aesthetic so thoroughly.
Hmm.
'Cause it shows the corpse emperor of the Imperium seated on his golden throne, deep within the Sanctum Imperialis on Holy Terra. And his throne is decorated with skulls and purity seals, and an eagle, which is the symbol of the Imperium, and also numerous Geiger-S style mechanical conduits, as the throne is both life support and a prison for the Emperor. Blanche delivered the core image of the Imperium of Man in the Warhammer 40K universe with religion, empire, technology, death, and bureaucracy more than anything.
Yeah.
And the full story of how the emperor got into the throne and the Horus heresy and all that stuff would take multiple episodes on its own. It's a really expansive story. It's a really interesting story. But unfortunately, we don't have the time to explore all of it here. We're going to, but I'll give you the overview of it. The emperor was trying to make a webway for humanity to travel and communicate without using the warp, using the golden throne to power a beacon known as the Astronomicon.
Oh, that's not ominous.
Yeah, so he's betrayed by one of the Primarchs, Horus, who lays siege to Terra during that siege, he's mortally wounded, and the Emperor is mortally wounded and placed on the throne for life support. And the Emperor has been on the throne for 10,000 years in the 41st millennium. His body is ruined, but his psychic presence remains, and his life is sustained by the death of 1,000 psychers a day, keeping the corpse emperor and the beacon alive so that the Imperium can traverse the warp and carry on humanity's crusade. And Blanche captures the corpse emperor and his morbid glory and gives the 40K universe its kind of iconic grimdark aesthetic. And a little bit more about the Horus heresy, just to flesh it out a bit more, is that um, the emperor of mankind was trying to keep the warp a secret from from humanity and from the Primarchs, and that's one of the reasons why Horus rebelled, is because he learned of the warp and then fell under the chaotic influence of the warp and tried to take over, tried to kill the emperor. um, and when I say Primarchs, he's one of the sons of the emperor, um, created by the emperor as a kind of superhuman, it's like a superhuman super soldier, and one of the heads of a legion. So, and speaking of a legion, we'll jump over to the next one. Um, and this is the Blood Angels versus Orcs, Blood Angels versus Orcs from 1993, and this was uh, created in 1993 for the cover of the second edition 40K box set.
Hmm.
And it really moves us from the spiritual center of the 40K to the reality of the 41st millennium. It shows the Blood Angels faction of Space Marines facing off against an army of orcs. Contrary to the perception of the grimdark world as being full of drab colors, this shows vibrant reds, yellows, and blues, and yet still shows the horrors of war. As the saying goes, in the grimdark future, there is only war. The Imperium is under constant struggle against Xenos forces that would destroy humanity. The Imperium unites under the banner of the Emperor to fight off the surging hordes, and this image is a sample of that world. The 40K universe is a world where of heraldry and old world battle aesthetics. Banner bearers, icons, and standards are just part of the battle, and each Space Marine faction has their own distinct aesthetic. Yeah, death to the false emperor. That's right. And the Blood Angels are children of the Primarch Sanguinius, the Ninth Legion of the Imperium, and they're haunted by the death of their Primarch, who was killed during the attack on the attack on Terra, um, during the Horus Heresy. Let's see, they're haunted by the death of their Primarch, and they've inherited both the red thirst and the the black rage through their bloodline. So each space marine carries within them a gene seed from their Primarch. So each space marine is literally genetically related to their Primarch.
Hmm.
The the Blood Angels are one of the most noble and honorable factions in the Imperium, and the Red Thirst is a craving for blood and close combat slaughter, and they maintain a kind of vampiric aesthetic as cultured and artistic, noble and beautiful, and it's merely a cover for their savage hunger. When they succumb to the Black Rage, they mentally relive the battle between Sanguinius and Horus, um, where Sanguinius was killed. They no longer see the battlefield, they see the heresy, the traitor, and they lose all reason. And it's seen as sort of a living death. And members who have fallen to it are sent to the battlefield to die as noble of a death as possible if they're not just killed outright. Sometimes they'll turn and attack their brothers, in which case they have to be dispatched of. They're the Blood Angels are essentially an angelic knight turned into a vampiric martyr and berserker. And the orcs, on the other hand, who they're fighting here, are easily one of the most entertaining factions in all of in all of 40K. The orcs are fucking hilarious.
Aren't they the ones that just believe into something, whether it actually happens or not? Like,
yeah, the orcs are. Go ahead.
No. I don't know enough to properly say. It's just the little knowledge I've gathered.
Yeah, the orcs have they're incredibly psychic. They're strong psychers, but they don't know they're psychic.
Oh.
They just are. And so shit they believe just happens. So their guns fire because they believe their guns fire. They get certain things like shit that's painted red goes faster. The things that are painted purple are stealthy, stuff like that. And it's really cool to see what orc players will kit bash together for some stuff. And I've seen people make orc models out of wild shit, orc vehicles out of wild shit, because really all it has to have is kind of the semblance of a vehicle to be an orc vehicle. And really they are the great green engine of chaotic battle. They live only to fight. They live only for the Wa, the eternal Wa. And and they have a very simple mindset. They're savage and brutal. And in this, they're the opposite of the Blood Angels in so many ways. The green mass of noise and guns compared to the coordinated tactics of the Blood Angels. Yeah, they're weird. They're a weird sort of parallel psychers. It's very interesting. Um,
Hmm.
they're hilarious. It's so hilarious with their twin gods, Gork and Mork. Um, and the and their gods are, one of them is cunning and strong, and the other one is strong and cunning. Yes. And the orcs themselves have a great respect for the emperor, and it's sometimes speculated that that is the reason why the emperor is still alive, is because the orcs believe in the power of the emperor. Although that's never actually confirmed. That's just fan theory shit.
Hmm.
Um, so this the chaos in this image really, I think, encapsulates, like, there's just a lot of stuff going on in here that shows the chaos of war and battle, and then also the kind of overwhelming odds that the Imperium of Man face by fighting off the orcs and all the rest of the Xenos. Like, the Imperium of Man are the minority in the universe, really, and they're under constant threat, and that's why the Imperium of Man has to be so brutal and savage and suffer no Xenos to live. Um, and under that, we'll move into our next picture. This is the his iconic image of the Sororitas in 1997, and this was created for the first codex and line of miniatures that the Sisters of Battle ever got. Um, the image takes the religious horror from the emperor sits on his golden throne and makes it active, militant, and human. The central character is brutal and sexy, standing on a pile of bones, with her foot on top of a skull on a field of blood and bones, while flaming skies and hordes of warriors show behind her.
Hmm.
And the Sisters of Battle themselves are one of, in my opinion, they have one of the coolest aesthetics of any of the uh, Imperial factions, just because they have such a crazy, like, religious gothic aesthetic.
It's kind
Um,
of like if Joan Jett did more costuming. That's kind of my
yeah.
mental read on this.
So the reason for the Sisters of Battle is that the God Emperor mandated that the church shall have no male soldiers. So in response, the Adeptus Sororitas was born. Female warriors marching to defend the faith, and while they are not bioengineered supermen like the Astartes, they're regular humans using the Imperium's technology to fight for the Eternal Crusade, and they are the faith of the Emperor in motion. Um, some of the most fanatic, yeah, the Dami Mommy battle nuns, yeah, pretty much. They are some of the most easily fanatical members of the Imperium, who most ardently believe in the church. Um, they have an extremely gothic aesthetic, like I said, with cathedrals and liturgical elements. They use faith as armor and as ammo in the fires of battle. Their terror through conviction, showing the grotesque pageantry of the ecclesiarchy. Skulls, priests, banners, cherubs, relics, and fire. It's a really cool. It's a really cool war band. I've got a buddy who plays Sisters,
Yeah,
and
cool.
the models are fantastic. Some of my favorite models. Um, and I have chaos armies. That's what I was playing, was chaos, because I guess I'm fucking edge lord. But it's funny. I have bumper stickers on my car, and I have a corn logo, a Nurgle logo, and a Slaanesh logo. And one of my friends pointed out to me, he's like, "You have all of them but Zinch." He's like, "So you have bloodlust, disease, and degeneracy with absolutely no reason." Like, yeah, that makes sense. So, but some of my favorite models are Sisters, and stuff like the Penitent engine, which is which is some. I wish they'd strap Mitch McConnell into one of those fucking things. Um,
You don't think he's immortal
but it's
enough?
kind of like a, yeah, right. Well, the thing is it's kind of the difference between a dreadnought and a penitent engine. Because of course dreadnoughts, they have a space marine is encapsulated within the inside of the dreadnought. In a penitent engine, instead of being encapsulated in it, it's wide open. So they strap people into it and send them into battle. They're in constant pain, and their only relief from that pain is death through glorious battle, which is like,
Fair enough.
it's pretty, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Um, and then let's see. Okay, we're doing okay on time. So we'll jump over to the next one. Speaking of the ecclesiarchy, this is the art from the Black Templars, Black Templars art. And this was created in 1998 for the third edition codex of the Black Templars.
Hmm.
And many fans see this as one of the most definitive Blanche images. It gives one of the purest expressions of the 40K Gothic Crusade. The Black Templars are a medieval holy army translated into the far future, with black armor, white tabards, crosses, skulls, chains, relics, banners, and purity seals. Where the Blood Angels are warrior poets and kind of pseudo aristocrats of the battlefield, the Black Templars are the grim determination of the God Emperor's crusade. So, yeah, the image shows a broad battlefield of expressing to express the scale of the crusade, with fire and destruction surrounding the holy warriors. The Black Templars are the crusading sons of Primarch Royal Rogel Dorn. They treat war and battle as a sacred duty, exterminating the enemies of the Imperium as not just as Xenos threats to humanity, but as heretics to the order of the God Emperor's will and the Imperium of Man. And the movie Hell's Reach, which Callum's talking about here in chat. Hey, what's up, Bez? The fan-made movie Hell's Reach, which is the story of the Battle of the Planet Armageddon, tells the story of Reclusiarch Grimaldus, and is one of the best examples of the Black Templars in action as the Fist of the Emperor. And that movie Hell's Reach is on YouTube. It was created by it was entirely fan-made, fan-funded project, and it was originally done by one guy. And it starts out with animation, which kind of puts a lot of people off because it's like black and white line drawings that are kind of jittery. I personally love the aesthetic. I think it's fantastic. But as it goes on, you can tell where he got more funding. You can tell when he started to get more funding for the project, and it becomes more polished. But the story of Hell's Reach is about Reclusiarch Grimaldus and his Black Templars, his squad of Black Templars, defending the Hive City on Armageddon from a greenskin invasion. And Grimaldus is sent there knowing that it's likely a hopeless thing. He's very unlikely to win against the Greenskins, but they can't cede ground. Yeah, that's a good point. There's one thing Alias Architer says here. There is one thing I find baffling about the Imperium. It's perpetually using human skulls for the decor, which the aliens often do as well, as does Chaos, who just leave more flesh on. That's true.
You know, that is kind of a curious thing. It's like, so why are all the human skulls here?
One of my favorite models that I've painted personally is called a Skull Taker. And it's my it was the leader of my war band just because I ran a blob of bloodthirster or of bloodletters. But it's a red demon with a cape made of skulls.
That's cool.
And yeah, and I think that the skull aesthetic really, I think is one of Blanche's big influences on it. He put skulls in a lot of his work even prior to 40K. So it's one of the things that he brought into the universe. And as we talk more about the actual universe, again, you know, he was the visual architect for the 40K universe. Yeah, in a lot of ways, LGM, you're right. The human skulls are meant to honor the fallen in some ways, unless you're a servo skull, uh, or a servitor. They could make Mitch McConnell into a servitor too. That would be fucking hilarious.
Thought he already was.
But if you, yeah, he effectively is. If you have the time, and you haven't seen it, I highly recommend Hell's Reach on YouTube. It is one of the most, like, the opening line on it. The opening line is Grimaldus saying, "I will die on this world. I will die on Armageddon." Um, Knowing, like I said, he was sent uh, to Armageddon to fight a losing battle, just to try to hold off the Greenskin army. And because he was such a cunning warrior, he actually helped hold them back during the season of battle. So let's move on to our last picture, our last painting for John Blanche. Um, and this is a Dark Mechanicum Tech Priest. This was done in 2004. Yeah, Space Marines should, yeah, they should start wearing butchered Necrons. They should start covering themselves with like Tyranid skulls, which I know that some already do. Um, but yeah, so this image was published in 2004 as a Horus Heresy / 40K image for the Horus Heresy Volume 2 Visions of Darkness book. And according to 40K Lexicanum, it is a full color background book, and it takes up the story of Horus's rebellion against the Emperor where Volume 1 left off, obviously. It's just Volume 2. And this work brings more Geiger-esque elements into the 40K universe, because it shows a tech priest of the Dark Mechanicum, which is the Mechanicus faction corrupted by the influence of chaos. And the Adeptus Mechanicus is the tech faction of the Imperium, and they're a mildly heretical faction, but they maintain technology for the Imperium, so they're tolerated. Their story is a whole nother one that could go a whole episode. The story of the battle against the Mechanicum on Mars. And they're the faction that shows the heaviest influence of Geiger, as they're a combination of man and machine. And the Mechanicus is where the popular quote, and I read it here: "From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me. I claimed the strength and certainty of steel. I aspired to the purity of the blessed machine. Your kind claim your flesh as if it will not decay and fail you. One day the cooled biomass that you call the temple will wither, and you'll beg my kind to save you. But I am already saved, for the machine is immortal. Even in death, I serve the Omniscience." And this image shows the iconic chain sword, which makes it immediately recognizable as a 40K image.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Blanche really gives us the final form of the season's journey. After Geiger's biomechanical horror and Venosa's radiant mysticism, Blanche shows us a world where body and machine, and faith, empire, and nightmare have all fused into one visual civilization. So a few things here. Of course, the Mechanicum. I really love the background red image. And the color, which most people don't recognize, the corn red, or people who are not familiar with 40K would recognize the corn red, is very chaotic. It's a very chaotic color. It's very different from the Blood Angels red. Yeah, and LGM, the Mechanicus are partly based off of the Ixians from Dune. Which, fun fact about the Ixians, the reason why their planet is called Ix is because it's the 9th planet from their sun. Most people don't know that. That's why Ix is called Ix, because it's actually IX. It's actually 9. But yeah, the Mechanicum are really fun, actually a really fun army to play. They're a very shooty army. And again, they are where things like the servitors, which are all over the Imperium, but they really kind of originate from the Mechanicus. The Mechanicus are the ones that put together a lot of the human machine hybrids, creating that Geiger-esque body horror of mechanical of machine and humanity fused as one. And where Geiger uses kind of that aesthetic as a, like a mildly sexy or seductive type thing.
Hmm.
Um, this is purely its Scutari, yeah. This is purely its expression in the world of the 41st millennia, of the world of machine horror and flesh, where it has a very strong militaristic purpose, um, and a very heavy religious bent. The Mechanicum have a very so they have a reverence for machines, and that's what the Omnissiah represents. They believe that machines have a machine spirit, and that if a machine is not it's not anointed or blessed by the Omnissiah, it won't work. A lot of things in the 41st millennia, they've it's there's a lot of different reasons why, but they've lost the actual know-how to create a lot of things. And the Mechanicus helps maintain a lot of shit that otherwise would just fall apart, and that they have no idea how to recreate. There's not a lot of there's not innovation.
Hmm.
The 41st millennia is really a world of stagnation. There's not, like I said, there's not innovation. They're not creating new technology. They're all kind of stuck in that world um, of 30K effectively. They haven't advanced much since the emperor got on the golden throne. They've claimed land. They've expanded the empire in that, they've claimed more territory, but they have not created these technological advancements that you would have expected to happen in 10,000 years. Um, which is one of the reasons why they have to keep the God Emperor alive, is because without the God Emperor on the throne, they would have no way to traverse the warp or traverse long distance space.
Hmm.
So let's move into the last half of the presentation here. So going back to the 80s, by 1980s, he'd moved from a freelance illustrator into a full-time position at Games Workshop. He'd been supplying them art since the 70s, but had work had become integral to the brand's image. In 1983, he produced work for the first edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. This is the box there.
Huh.
And it was at this point that he'd stopped being a simple illustrator, to an architect of Games Workshop's visual universe. And this was a crucial time as Games Workshop was moving from importing games to building their own world. And this coincided with Citadel becoming one of the dominant forces in miniatures. And in 1986, Games Workshop moved to Nottingham, and Blanche was made the company's art director. And he oversaw and contributed to regular art and miniature paintings. And this is one of his miniatures that he painted. And he actually won an award for this. As you would
I can't imagine
understand, he put,
why.
right, I know, he put the Mona Lisa on a fucking banner.
That is too cool.
He contributed columns to White Dwarf for many years, as well as providing numerous illustrations for Games Workshop, and with other artists like Ian Miller. This is the art of Ian Miller from his book, his site, and Adrian Smith, who created this fantastic image of the God damn it, the Ultramarines.
Yeah.
They're providing a formative contribution to the look and contemporary core products. In 1987, Warhammer 40K was first introduced, and 40K was the perfect vehicle for Blanche's vision of a decayed and technological and arcane future. And this is a self-portrait that Blanche did in his typical style.
Oh, that's cool.
And he was not just a see, I think it's rad. Um, like he's got the kind of god emperor style elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course there's skulls and everything in there. But he was not just a talented illustrator, he was also an incredibly talented miniature painter, as I showed the other one. The Lost Minis wiki, which is a great source for miniature painting, has a collection of some of his works, and here are a few of his minis that he did. This is a dragon, and keep in mind, these are not... So the current miniatures, the current line of miniatures now are made from resin or plastic. Um, they're a lot more detailed. These were pewter minis,
Oh, wow.
and this is a dragon he did. And you can see the detail on that shield. Like, absolutely fucking stunning.
Yeah.
Um,
Because there's a different symbol in each heart. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and you got to think these are tabletop miniatures. This thing's probably no less than an inch tall, or no more than an inch tall at most. This is an orc he did. It's got, I mean, the circles on it are amazing.
Yes, the sun circles.
Yeah, this the circles on his sleeve are really cool. The sun circle in the middle
Uh-huh.
is a really cool, like, it's not easy to paint shit like this on miniatures. And to capture that level of detail on miniatures. And the shield, you can see the cutaway of the shield up the top there,
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of great detail in it as well. This is another orc model he did. And the detail on the shield is phenomenal.
That is so
That
cool.
painting of the skull and the symbol underneath it.
Hmm.
This is labeled as half troll. And the banner on this is so goddamn cool.
That's
Like,
wild.
there's so much detail in there for just being a flat. It's so good. And it shows just how incredibly talented he was. And this is another one. And look at the tiger on that fucking shield.
Yeah.
That's insane level of
Well,
detail
and
that he
then
is just
the tattooing
freehand
on the leg
painted
too.
onto the shield.
It's just
Oh yeah,
that is such an attention to detail.
yeah. And again, these are pewter minis. They're not like the... And another thing about pewter minis too is that they're fucking heavier to paint. They're heavier to hold on to. So it's not as easy to hold on to them and paint them as it is to paint plastic ones.
Oh yeah, and you
Um,
can't use like neat little tricks like we saw with some of Callum's stuff.
yeah, yeah. And this is a diorama at Games Workshop headquarters of one of his, and he put this together.
Damn.
This is called the Legion of the Damned. And it's just a horde of skeletons going in. And there's so much detail in it. We could spend a lot of time talking about it. We're running short on time. So by the 90s, Blanche's art and vision became far more than decoration. They were the lens through which players viewed the 40K universe. And this is the iconic box art from Codex covers, covered in the future works. His art was not just the art of the books, but they were the atmosphere of the product. This was the phase that really crystallized the grim dark motif of the universe.
Hmm.
And by the early 2000s, had work had become so influential that the term Blanchitsu, which this model is a... This is not one of his models. This is someone else's models, but it's an example of that Blanchitsu style. And this was the term was adopted to describe his work and the aesthetic, and the word becomes synonymous with grimdark. And the term itself actually originated from an article series from Blanche published in White Dwarf magazine starting in 2009.
Oh, that's cool.
So he had an article called Blanchitsu talking about minis and miniature paintings.
Huh.
So on May 21st, 2023, after over 4 decades with Games Workshop and being with Warhammer since its inception, Blanche retired from Games Workshop. But even after retirement, he continued to be a force shaping the world of miniatures and grimdark art. And John Blanche passed away on June 1st in 2026 at the age of 77. And it's so recent that an exact cause of death has yet to be announced.
Yeah, fair.
Blanche leaves behind a body of work so expansive that it's actually be impossible to cover it all in a single hour.
Hmm.
And shortly after 40K's inception, Warhammer became a global phenomenon, and the 40K universe has influenced pop culture in outright and sudden ways for decades. The property itself generated almost $1 billion last year alone,
Wow.
and an estimated $8 billion since its inception. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot now. But the fact is that cash has become so inflated that previously to the year 2020, a $5 million year at a company was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And so,
And for something that is so niche, relatively speaking, yeah,
mhm,
I'm thoroughly impressed at his influence here.
yeah, yeah. And it's, and the reason, I mean, and he's part of the reason why 40K is so beloved and so influential. Not just, not just through his art, but through his vision for the product. And also, he helped design models too. So I didn't mention any of that in here, but he was also a model designer. He was a
Hmm.
very multifaceted artist and did a really great job. Um, like I said, it's inspired hundreds of hours of fan created videos and millions of pieces of individual art, fan art, stuff like that. And some of the most amazing miniatures ever created. And these are a few minis from the painter El Miniaturista. He has an Instagram and a Patreon and a YouTube channel, and he does just some fantastic art.
That's
And so
cool.
here's a couple of his painting or his pieces here. And so he does such a phenomenal job with the source lighting.
That's the thing that I keep wondering. It's like, is that painted or is that hollowed out and has some sort of
Right?
illumination hooked into it?
Yeah. No, it's all painted.
That's
Um,
amazing. I just
I know,
this
and this is another one too.
looking at the marine. It's like you see where there's reflections on the armor, and that just blows my mind.
Yeah, he has such a and this guy's phenomenal if you ever check out his work, El Miniaturista. Um, he has some of the best like understanding of the source lighting when it comes to models. And I think this last one really highlights that pretty well with the end of the gun. So he's got the flare from the gun firing reflecting all over, like even back on the shoulder here,
Mm-hmm.
reflecting off the knee.
Man,
He just does such phenomenal work.
we could do an episode on him if we wanted to.
We could totally do an episode on this guy. Um, but that brings us to the end of the show. That's all I got for John Blanche. Like I was saying previously, it's hard to get a lot of scholarly sources on a guy like this, and I like to make sure that I verify my information. Although I just talk out of my ass most of the time, but I like to get verified information. And there's lots of interviews and art from John Blanche available on the internet. He was really a phenomenal artist. And if you feel like you have too much money, definitely look into getting into 40K because it will drain your fucking bank account so goddamn quick. Um,
I have enough problem with the old camping stoves right now. I don't know if I need more
yeah.
problems.
Yeah, there it is some of the some of the most expensive plastic you'll ever buy. I have a bloodthirster. Like it's a huge model. It's a giant model. And we were at the Warhammer store getting some paints for my youngest son on Father's Day one year. And I was just admiring it. It's like, oh, that's so cool. And my older son bought it for me for Father's Day. And the model itself was like $130.
Oh, that's cool.
And this was a while ago. But yeah. So anyhow, thank you all for coming out. Um, we really appreciate your guys' support, and I think this has been a really fun episode. I've really enjoyed the chat on this one. You guys all kick ass. We love you showing up, and we're happy to put on this information for you. So next may not be next week, but the next episode will be the season wrap up. We're gonna show images from each of the episodes from this season. I'll show a piece of art from every episode this season, and we'll do a quick overview of those just to remind us. And then we'll talk about the upcoming season. So we'll see you guys. Keep an eye out. If we're not doing it next week, then I will put up a post that says so. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, or we'll see you next episode.
Indeed.
Thanks very much, people.
Go look at some art and apparently paint some miniatures and up your skill levels, damn it, because I can't.
That's right. Blood for the blood god. That's what I gotta say. Night, folks.
Night.